A scientist read an advertisement for a thermostat she did not want and could not use. She read every word of it. Then she rolled a sheet of paper into her typewriter and wrote the man who wrote that ad a letter of complaint. Not about the thermostat, about the fact that she had finished it. Her complaint was precise. "I am a busy scientist," she wrote. "When I started reading your ad, I wasted 5 minutes of my valuable time reading the entire thing, and I was so upset at the complete waste of my time that I wanted to write you and complain." The man who opened that envelope kept it. As a copywriter, he said, "I couldn't have gotten a more complimentary complaint letter." Everyone knows an advertisement is built to make you buy something. Nobody can explain why a stranger reads one to the last line for a product she has already decided against. His name was Joseph Sugarman, and he sold gadgets by mail out of a suburb north of Chicago. In his catalog, he made his readers a standing offer: $10 for every spelling error they could find in his copy. Then, underneath, a request: "Please don't correct my grammar." He never graduated from college. His grades were poor. By his own accounting, he practically flunked English, and he had never sat through a single advertising course. His product line was whatever caught him that month: a radio you wore around your neck, tiles painted by Picasso, a pocket calculator retail stores had already given up on. And he owned the company. Every ad was written against his own payroll. "My failures far outnumbered my successes," he wrote. There was no salary underneath him, only the next ad. Therefore, in 1977, on a short trip to visit his sister in northern Wisconsin, he did something that fit none of it. He found a house on a lake outside Minocqua. 10,000 square feet, 16 acres, virgin timber, pines and oaks that escaped the crews who stripped that country bare in the 1800s. The price was $350,000, and he could not afford it. His lawyer, George Gersman, offered him a way to keep it: hold marketing seminars at the place, turn it into a business, write off the property, maybe even make a profit. Which meant that to keep the house, Sugarman would have to stand in a room of strangers and explain how he did it. But he had never explained it. Not once. He wrote the way he wrote, and it worked, and he had no idea whether any piece of it would survive being handed to somebody else. So the question that bought him the next 3 years was small and unanswerable. Was there a method in there? Or just him? Then his phone rang. The woman on the line called herself Ginger, and she opened with a sentence he took for a prank. "Mr. Sugarman, I love you." She was not joking. "I've been reading your advertisements for the past 5 years," she told him. "And I love your mind. I love your thought process, and I love your creative personality." She had never met him. She had only ever read him. And she was in serious trouble. She came to his office and used everything she knew to get what she wanted. She ran a beauty shop inside a shopping center and laid out her reasoning like a prosecutor. "I know that when the shopping center is full, I get a percentage of that traffic and they buy my cosmetics." So she rented a list, printed 50,000 mailing pieces, and put every dollar she had into sending them, plus money borrowed from friends. 0.5% would have made her a profit. She got 1/10 of what she needed to break even. He read her mailing piece and handed the fax back as a weapon. Her list was retail. Her offer was mail order. "You can't spend that kind of money without testing," he told her. 50,000 names when 5,000 would have told her the same thing. Then she asked him to write it for her, and he said no. He offered her a seat in Wisconsin instead. "Free. Pay me back after you make your first million." In his book he tells this story, stops at mid-scene, and sends you 300 pages to the back for the ending. But there's more. 1,200 miles south, in the Rio Grande Valley of Texas, a farmer named Frank Louis Schultz was growing grapefruit. Schultz had a marketing degree from Berkeley, and a decent mail-order business built on one letter he sent his customers year after year. The letter worked. Advertising did not. He hired one of the country's most respected direct response agencies, and the first ad bombed. So did the second. His gross sales did not cover the cost of the ad space. He had the temperament for a long shot. "When you're a farmer, you always worry about the crop," he liked to say. "It's growing too slow, you worry. It's growing too fast, you really worry." When Sugarman announced that first seminar, Schultz was among the first to sign up. He sat through all 5 days and said almost nothing. What he heard was not a bag of tricks. It was one idea, stated so plainly it sounds like a joke until you try to argue with it. Every element of an advertisement, headline, photograph, caption, type, exists to do exactly one thing: get you to read the first sentence. And then, the sole purpose of the first sentence in an advertisement is to get you to read the second sentence. The second exists to get you to the third to the fourth. Sugarman put the obvious objection to his students and answered it himself. Was there any mention of benefits, or product description, or unique features? Of course not. Which is why his opening lines were barely sentences at all. Losing weight is not easy. It's you against a computer. It had to happen. Hats off to IBM. A locomotive leaving a standing start. The first few feet cost everything, and every foot after that comes easier. So picture a steep playground slide, and somebody has poured baby oil down the whole length of it, side rails included. You climb the ladder. You sit at the top. You start down and you reach for the rails, and there is nothing there to hold. Your readers should be so compelled to read your copy that they cannot stop reading until they read all of it, as if sliding down a slippery slide. He spent years trying to break his own rule, putting the sales message at the top where every commercial instinct says it belongs. I've tried using every trick in the book to prove my theory wrong and have failed at each attempt. Because the slide is not built out of argument. It is built out of environment, and he learned that in a Honolulu gallery. A saleswoman carried a painting to a carpeted room at the back, hung it, turned the classical music up, dimmed the lights, and left 2 spotlights on the paint. His credit card was halfway out of his pocket before he caught himself. He learned it again on a thermostat with a cheap case and a name he hated. Instead of praising it, he attacked it. The caption under the photograph read, "It had no digital readout, an ugly case and a stupid name. It almost made us sick." That ad ran for 3 years. Therefore the format spread, and so did everybody else's version of it. By the end of the 70s, his layout was in newspapers, magazines, and the seat pockets of airplanes, running often enough to breed a whole flock of imitators. Competitors lifted it wholesale, and he watched them do it. "I hated it when they copied me," he wrote, "but in the process of trying to outwit them, my copywriting skills grew even stronger." Now consider what he had built in Wisconsin, because it is worth describing slowly. To reach the seminar, you flew to Chicago. From Chicago, a commuter plane to Rhinelander. From Rhinelander, a bus, 40 minutes, to a motel. From the motel, a pontoon boat across the lake to a boathouse, and then a path, on foot, up to the house. Most of a day, and a boat, to sit in a room with the man you were about to compete against. He called the place Nature's Response, and that was the part nobody could photograph. Not the layout. The thing underneath the layout had been assembled entirely out of his own mistakes. But what he taught those rooms, one plank at a time, was that nearly everything they were certain about was wrong. Start with knowing your customer. Selling the first pocket calculator by mail, Sugarman had to choose 10 lists for a 50,000-piece mailing. 8 he picked himself, and every one made sense. Engineers, accountants, surveyors, wealthy people at home addresses. His broker suggested the last 2. Presidents of corporations doing $20 million a year or more. Sugarman thought it was a waste. Those men were too busy to open their own mail. Some secretary would bin it. He ran them anyway. Those 2 lists were the best of the 10. His own 8 pulled poorly. Then the stake. A circus elephant stands anchored by a metal collar, a light chain, and a wooden peg driven into the ground. 12,000 pounds against a peg. One pull and it walks away. It never pulls. When it was a baby, that same chain held it, and it pulled every day until the skin on its leg opened, and it learned that pulling was futile and painful. The elephant is not held by the peg. It is held by an old memory of a peg. When trying to solve problems, Sugarman wrote, don't assume constraints that aren't really there. He kept a running list of the ones he had broken. You can't sell your airplane for more than $190,000. He sold it for $240,000 in 10 days. Who would buy sunglasses by mail when people need to try them on first and everybody wants a different style? They sold more than 10 million pairs of one single style. But there was one thing the pen could not do, and he found it hanging around his neck. The bone phone was a portable radio you wore over your shoulders. He wrote the copy himself. The copy was good, the product was new, the timing looked perfect, and for a short while it moved. Then Sony shipped the Walkman. It was perfect timing, he wrote, until a product called the Walkman came out and killed our new product. Timing. It can kill a product or make it. No sentence has ever been written that makes a person want last year's idea. Years later, closing the book, he accounted for himself, and the accounting is not flattering. I am not the smartest of men, he wrote. Had I been smarter, I would not have made many of the mistakes I did. He would have read more. He would have tested more. He would have thought harder before risking his money and his time. And he adds that he is not more talented than anybody else either. There are many great writers. There are many great marketers. What he claims is two things. He can take something complicated and say it simply. And he does not quit. To me, it wasn't whether I won or lost that was important. It was whether I played the game. He kept one line from Edwin Land, who invented the Polaroid camera, close at hand. A mistake is a future benefit, the full value of which is yet to be realized. Therefore, the value came due in a Holiday Inn in Minocqua, Wisconsin. The seminar ended. Frank Schultz, who had said almost nothing for 5 days, did not fly home. He took a room at the motel down the road, shut the door, and wrote his first print ad in one sitting. He did not open on grapefruit. He opened on this. I'm a farmer, and the story I tell you is the absolute truth, as incredible as it may seem. Then he told about Dr. Webb's Grove, a picker walking up to the house holding 6 of the strangest grapefruit anyone had ever seen, every one off a single branch of one ordinary tree. Enormous. A faint red blush on the skin, and when the doctor sliced one open, brilliant ruby red inside, and sweet. Schultz mailed it to Northbrook. Sugarman changed the headline, cut one line that sounded like an agency had written it, and sent it straight back. That ad sold more fruit than Schultz could pick and ship. Working copywriters wrote in to congratulate a farmer on his first attempt. By then, Sugarman had compressed the whole thing into 7 steps. Become an expert on what you're selling. Know who you're selling it to. Write your headline. Write the copy without stopping to fix anything. Edit. Walk away and let it sit. Then look one final time. He ran those steps himself in 1986, on a pair of sunglasses a friend had called him about. When you put on these glasses, your vision improves. Objects appear sharper, more defined. Sugarman put them on, and took them off and put them on again, checking whether his own eyes were lying. Then he wrote it up. I am about to tell you a true story. If you believe me, you will be well rewarded. If you don't believe me, I will make it worth your while to change your mind. Let me explain. That ad turned a pair of sunglasses into blue blocker. But 8 years before that, an ad had worked exactly as designed, and the mail brought back something no order count could show him. He had run gold chains in a space-age catalog, framed as a joke about dressing a woman for a trip through outer space. A reader in Egg Harbor City, New Jersey sent 2 pages, single-spaced, listing the fields women had moved into while he wasn't looking. She closed it. "Cordially wishing you immediate bankruptcy, I remain," and signed her name. He reprinted that ad in his own book, decades later, with the letter and his own verdict beside it. It is a good example of the insensitivity to women's issues that I had at the time. But hey, I'm human, and I learned. 17 seminars. 312 students, from that first summer in 1977 to a last one in Maui in 2000. A man ran a radar detector business out of his garage, went home, and built Cincinnati Microwave into a $140 million public company. Victoria's Secret sent 2 of its marketing people when the entire company was 2 stores and a catalog, and a UPS driver turned up with his last $2,000. A greased slide standing in an empty playground. The rails shine. There is nothing at the top of it. No product, no price, no promise, no argument. 4 ordinary words laid across the first step. Losing weight is not easy. And a line of people, not one of whom came here to buy anything, climbing the ladder. One more thing about Ginger. When you turn to the back of that book for the ending he withheld, the first thing waiting for you is not the ending. It's this. You couldn't wait, could you? You had to turn to the back of the book before you read the next line of copy in Chapter 10. He set that trap 11 chapters early, and it has caught every reader who ever bought the book. Your message must always be so compelling that you motivate the reader to do things normally not done.